You are what I'm looking for. I know what I'm looking for.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's video, I'm going to be sorting through piles of scraps. Now, I got this idea from a Facebook group that strictly uses scraps on cards. And I thought to myself, I have all kinds of scraps, but how would I even begin to pull these together to create cards with them? I've been accumulating my scraps for so long. I have 60 plus videos of Chop It Up on my website, and Chop It Up is a series that I've created for cutting your pattern paper and 12 by 12 cardstocks to create projects. So here I am with a packet of scraps that I had, and I just kind of started digging through it, and I thought, how am I going to sort these? I started sorting based on what I had in front of me. I thought, okay, there's little tiny scraps, then I have like strips, and then I have bigger pieces, mid-sized pieces, and I've got some little foils and glitter. So I wanted to start sorting these by size. So I thought, okay, tiny things together, big things together, strips together. That was the method I used to start sorting this pile of scraps, and it seemed to work really well. It encouraged me to go dig through and see kind of what I had, what I was keeping, was there anything that I wanted to throw away, and as I was sorting through, I was able to decide what kind of piles I needed versus what kind of piles I didn't need. So I keep all of my foils and glitters and things like that in a separate section. And then also I found cut-aparts that usually come in some of my 12 by 12 paper packs, and I use those to create cards and things like that. So I started to create a section for cut-aparts as well. When I came across full-size sheets of anything, I would put those back where they belong, where all the full-size stuff is. And then as I'm sorting these through, I was thinking about different ways I could use these and incorporate them into my cards. Now, I'm going to try to create some videos after this is all sorted to show you how I'm going to repurpose these. But today's video is just going to be generally sorting through these scraps. Now, as I work here, I'll just tell you a little bit about what I found on Facebook. The Facebook group that I came across was a group that strictly uses scraps to create projects. It is not a page that likes to promote businesses or YouTube channels or things like that. So I kind of like that, just sort of inspiration and ideas with no hidden motive behind it. There's no ulterior motive. It's just generally people sharing their ideas for using up their scraps. And sometimes we need that. Sometimes I don't want to watch videos that are encouraging me to buy new supplies or, having the newest, latest and greatest items. And I don't always need that. I've got enough stuff in my craft room where I could, sit here and craft for 10 years every day, day in and day out, and still have enough supplies to keep going. But, the shopaholic inside of me really feels like I need new things all the time to be inspired. But sometimes to be inspired, all you need to do is dig through what you have. And I really love using what I have because that means it's money that I've spent and it's gone to good use. So as I was coming through, I did find full-size paper collections, full sets of papers that had got stuffed away in my scraps, and a lot of white scraps and things that I could really pull together and actually use. So I may or may not use all of these pattern paper scraps, and that's okay because I've already made projects with them, and whatever's left is just sort of a bonus. So as I dig through the first pile, I really felt encouraged. I really felt like I had a system going, and I started to feel like I could handle this. Like this was something that wasn't too overwhelming, and I felt like I was creating a system that I could actually see myself using these scraps up. And on that Facebook group, there were some wonderful ideas of using punches to create geometrical patterns and just making pieces to add to cards at a later date, or creating little quilted cards or little squares and patterns, and just so much fun. And I felt like it's something that I could do, and then I would find inspiration doing. So now I've got some of these sorted, and I've created, like I said, my pile of glitters and foils. They're going to go get filed elsewhere. And I've got a small little pile of little pieces, a big stack of big pieces, and I've got all of my white and black cardstock off to the side. All of the big pieces here that used to be 12 by 12, they are going to fit back into the little envelope pocket that I started with. So that's what I'm going to use to file those away so that I can keep a little bit more room on my desk as I'm sorting. Now, I was so inspired that I thought, okay, let's keep going. I found a bunch of cardstocks all stacked in a pile in a corner somewhere, and I thought, okay, let's do this. Let's start sorting this stuff. So I came across some projects that I was working on at one point and gave up, and I thought, okay, I'll put these aside in a little stack for projects that need to either be tossed out or finished up. So I've got a little stack going on over there, and then all of my colored cardstock is going off to the side, and we're going to work on that later on. And then I'm going to open up this bin. This bin is where I used to keep all of my expensive cardstock scraps. I felt like I was spending more money on this colored cardstock. It wasn't the cheap stuff from Michael's or whatever craft store. This was all like heavy duty good stuff from Simon Says Stamp, Concord and Ninth, jennycarddesigns, and things like that. But I wasn't using them. They were just sitting in this bin, and I thought, okay, let's put those off to the side with the colored cardstock scraps, and we're going to use them. There were a bunch of sentiments, and I left all the sentiments in that little tub. And then I also came across a full sheet of foil and some vellum, and I'm going to file those away like everything else. And I didn't want to stop. I kept going. I was so inspired that I pulled out this gigantic scrapbook bin full of random things. Inside of here has pattern paper, colored cardstock. It has cut aparts. There are even art projects that I was working on, card bases, just all kinds of stuff. And there was no way that I was ever going to dig through here and actually make any projects in the state that it was in. Now it was time to make some space on my desk. So I grabbed one little basket for little tiny things. I grabbed one little basket for any of the cut aparts or ephemera that I was finding. And then I grabbed a little bit of a bigger basket and I put the bigger size scraps in there. And I decided if they didn't fit into the basket, then they were to go into the next pile up, just like this piece here. Okay, so now we've got 3 baskets, we've got some strips, we have larger pieces, and then we have the big stuff off to the side. Okay, and now I found these cut aparts here, and I thought, well, I'll cut these apart and add them to my ephemera basket. So I grabbed my paper trimmer, and I'm just gonna cut these 4 pieces apart and toss them in the bin. Now, this is not a really great way to get things done. I decided as I was going through the rest of the cardstocks that if I came across cut aparts, I would just stack them up and work on that at the end when I was all done. So here we go. I'm going to start digging through that big scrap bucket and just taking one chunk at a time. And when I found anything that was Christmas related, I grabbed a new tub and I thought this will be the bin that I keep all of my Christmas scraps in. Christmas for me is a whole other world. I have an enormous amount of Christmas supplies and it's my favorite time of year to craft. So I like to Christmas craft all year long, but I like to keep those things together because I can't really mix and match Christmas patterns with florals or, anything for that matter. Christmas is for Christmas only. So I've got that separated and put aside, and as I come through any cardstock scraps, I also separate those into another bin that I have behind me. Now here are some file folders I had made for a video previously that I never ended up using. So originally I set these into my large scraps, but I come back later and pull them out. As I was digging through, I pulled out some pieces that I had made with alcohol ink and ink blending and things like that. So I decided I needed to create its own pile for projects that were sort of backgrounds or unfinished. And I'm sure as crafters, we all have some of these types of things. So here are some more cut aparts, and this is where I decided there's really no point in me cutting them all up right now. I was going to cut it, and then I thought, never mind. I'll just fold it, stick it in my basket, and leave it, and then I'll keep going. So anything that I find is Christmas, it goes in the Christmas basket. Once again, colored cardstock goes in the colored cardstock basket, and black and white goes off to the side as well. So here are some alcohol ink backgrounds that I came across, some things that I had made one day when I was playing, and I thought, okay, let's put these all together in its own pile. So I'm holding them in my hand for dear life. I still hadn't figured out what I wanted to do with them yet, so I thought, let's just clean up what I've got in front of me, and then I will figure out what I'm going to do. So here we go. We have a stack of art pieces that I've created, a couple of pieces of garbage, and I'm just going to stack up those art pieces in behind my basket. So now I can quickly run through all these things, decide what's cut apart, what's Christmas, what's small, medium, large, and so on. And I can really put a dent in this gigantic stack of stuff. So I'm just speeding up here, collecting all my art pieces, separating everything out. And then once we get to the bottom of this bucket, I really feel like I've accomplished something. I have a system, I have everything organized, and I have a ton of ideas on how I can make this work for me. So there are just so many different patterns and things. I couldn't believe all the things that I was holding on to and that I hadn't used in my crafts. That gigantic bucket is all sorted, and now I'm ready to move on to the next step. So I've got some zippered bags, and I'm going to take each pile of pattern paper and I'm going to put them into their own zippered bag. So the little file folder that I had from the beginning where I put all the large scraps in, that's not going to fit back into the bucket that I'm using to store all these scraps. So I ended up taking a larger zippered bag. I'm going to take the stuff that's in the basket here and I'm going to put all of those into another zippered bag. And I feel like this is just an entire collection of card fronts. It's just full of all different stuff that I can put on the front of cards. If I need to make a quick and simple card, then I've got a bag full of stuff. So that's kind of neat. So all my little art pieces fell, and this is where I decided to add those file folders in. So now I've got those into a little basket on the side for any piece of art that I had created. And now we have these 12 by 12 strips, and I'm going to put those into a big zippered bag. I got some gigantic zippered bags from the dollar store, and they fit perfectly for my gigantic pieces of scrap papers. So I'm going to take the large scraps and put them in there first, and then I'll file that little folder away until I need it for another project. And then I'm going to grab another large zippered bag, and I'm going to put all these strips in. These strips, I'm going to search on Pinterest for different ideas on how to make cards using those strips. So I'll incorporate that into my next video that's going to use up some of these scraps. So once I've kind of sorted all these things through, I'm going to fill up my little bucket. So now there is a method and an order to the madness that once was before I started this organization. So all of the little scraps, I'm just going to leave them in the basket. I think I could probably start with using those up first. And I figure the smaller they are, if I don't end up using them, I won't feel so bad if I just dump that out and toss it, because there's really not a whole lot of waste there. But there's some pretty patterns in there that I might be able to use. So I'm going to grab my label maker, and I'm going to make a label that says pattern paper scraps. And I'm going to label the outside of my bin so that I can quickly reference what's inside of it, and I'll know exactly what's in there because I just went through everything. I'll pop a picture into the storage that I keep all of these big bins in so that you can kind of see what I do in terms of storing all these papers. So I keep a collection of my new stuff that I've purchased, 49 in Market and Echo Park paper collections or something along those lines, Stamperia, things like that. And I keep them in their own project buckets until I'm ready to kind of let them combine with everything else. And then I have all my scraps and things like that. So now I've decided to tackle that project of cutting apart all of my little ephemera and cut aparts. So now I have a basket full of little things, little notes and little journaling spots or little embellishments to put on cards or even to make a quick card. I've got a basket full of those little things. So I'll keep that with my tiny scraps right on my desk so it's quick reference for me. And then I'm going to grab all of those glitter and foil cardstocks and put them in a basket. I'm not going to sort my glitter and foil today. That'll be for another video. Maybe I'll work on that with my white and black cardstock. But for now, they're in their own bucket and they're separated. So of course, I thought I'm on a roll here. Let's keep going. So I grabbed another little zippered sleeve that I had, and it's got just a mix match of a bunch of stuff in it. And I was never using it because I looked at it and I'm like, oh, that's Christmas. I don't need to touch that. And then after digging through, I find that it's not just Christmas. There's a bunch of stuff in here. There are black cardstocks and blue cardstocks. There are mostly Christmas patterns in here, as it was a project bin at one point. And then I ended up just tossing a bunch of crap in with it, and then it was, just useless. So I'm going to sort through here. I've got some vellum and some black and gray and a piece of chipboard, and any of the Christmas stuff I'm going to pull out, and I'm going to put that into its own bin for Christmas stuff. There's this gorgeous pattern paper here, and I'm going to file that away into my pattern paper bin into the correct sized zippered bag. I've got some foil here, some shimmer cardstocks and things like that. And now I have some organization to this mess here. So I've got this pile of colored cardstock. And I thought, here's the perfect time to start sorting my colored cardstock. All my pattern paper scraps have now been sorted, and I'm ready to move on to the next step here. I've got these job ticket sleeves that I picked up from Amazon. I think there was like 50 in a pack. At one point, I was using them to keep all my extra fancy, extra special cardstocks in. I still keep all of my Gina K cardstock separate from everything else. I'm not exactly sure why, but I think that might change. So I've got all the blues from that little zippered bag that I had, and I put them in one envelope. And then I grabbed my bucket of colored cardstock scraps, and I thought, let's go to town here. Let's do the rainbow sorting method. So for this particular type of cardstock, I'm not going to sort by size. I'm going to sort by color. So then this way, when I'm looking for a color of a project, then I can quickly reference the color and pull it out. So I came up with a really neat storage method, and I'll show you that in a moment. But I'm just going to sort through all of these colors. I'm just going to keep digging through that bucket from the top to the bottom, one piece at a time, and file it into its color family home. I have one stack for grays and browns, and my black and white cardstock is off to the side. So everything else I've sorted. I've got blue, and I've got teal and green, red, orange, yellow, pink, and purple. So I'm going to file them all into these little sleeves. And now I have a little bit more of an organized method, and I will most likely use this. Of course, I kept digging, and I found another bucket of cardstock scraps. This one had some full-size sheets in here and some little tags and things. So I'm going to file those tags away with the ephemera, and then I'm just going to start sorting until I get all my colors sorted, and then I'm going to put them in the folder with the rest. So I've got purple and pink and so on. I put orange and yellow together because those are not colors I use often enough to have a lot of scraps, so I thought those would be perfect to combine into one little sleeve. So I've got all of my sleeves all filled in with all that cardstock, and it makes so much more sense to me now. Instead of just having random buckets of stuff laying around everywhere, I have this beautiful rainbow system where I'll be able to quickly file scraps as well as quickly grab scraps. So here's the bucket that I was using to sort my black and white cardstock, and I thought, well, let's dump you out. There's a bunch of junk in here, and let's repurpose this bin. And my folders for my colored cardstock fit absolutely perfect. I was so excited about that. I printed off a label for colored cardstock scraps, and I put it right on the side of this bin. It made me so happy to see madness turned into organization, and something pretty to look at too. So now, since I'm in the mood, I'm going to continue sorting through whatever I had stuffed away in here. And look, I found paper scraps. Now I can easily file the colors of the paper in the right folder. This was the most perfect method. I'm really happy with this. Now, I think the best way to know if it works is if we come back to this in a month and I've actually used some of the scraps and not just kept stuffing things in there, then I'll know it was the perfect organization method for me. So here we go. We've got this gigantic bin of black and white cardstocks. And I thought, you know what? I think I've had enough for one day. I've organized so much that it's okay if I just toss all this black and white into this bin, and then I can come back because this one's going to be more of an intense filtering. Because I use black and white so much, I think this needs to be sorted by size. All right, so I'm going to stop that video here. I hope that you enjoyed tagging along with me while I talked about basically garbage, stuff that's been put in a bin, tossed on my shelf, and left to be forgotten about. So now we have usable pieces, a whole slew of ideas that we can get to chopping up our chopped up stuff. Thanks so much for joining me today. Coming up on screen is a playlist for organization ideas that I have. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!